Hi and hello, watch fans, and welcome to another episode of The Real Time Show with me, your friendly neighborhood jeweler, Alon Joseph. Today, I'm very excited and actually proud to welcome into the virtual studio my dear friend, Adrian Buchmann. Welcome, Adrian.
Hello, Alon. How are you?
I'm very good. Where in the world did I find you today, Adrian?
Today, I'm in Beale City, not so far from actually the building of Omega. It's really good to hear you, as always.
As always, we have met a while ago in relation to Sequent, a brand you co-founded and are CEO of, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. That's correct.
It was always a pleasure to hang out with you, speak with you, seen you in London, Amsterdam, Geneva, and now in the metaverse of podcasting. I actually have a zillion questions for you. I'm quite sure that 1 hour is not going to be enough. So I want to invite you up front to come back on the show again, please. Because you are such a multifaceted talent, although you're very modest and polite and friendly and actually a nice guy. I don't even know where to start. So maybe, Adrian, could you just run down quickly who you are, how old you are, and what it is that you actually do in the watch world?
Okay, that's very clear. First of all, thank you for the next invitation. Well, let's do this interview and see if there is room for it. Talented, I don't know. Multifaceted, definitely yes. And modest, you have to thank my parents. They always told me to keep low profile. So yeah, if to tell about me a little bit. I'm a multicultural person, 35 years old, multicultural by the fact that born from Spanish mother, Swiss, German, Italian father, grew up in Le Locle, so couldn't be more ingrained in the watchmaking industry geographically. And my career started with watches when I was already, technically speaking, when I was 16. Philosophically speaking, since I'm five, probably. I'm saying you five because my mom was working in the watchmaking school of Loloc, so I used to spend my time going through the watchmaker's desk and CNC machines. There's a weird thing when you go to case maker and the oil of the CNC machine reminds you of the childhood. There's something specific about my background. And yeah, career started. The first, I've always been passionate about drawing and making stuff, and unmounting things and try to understand. So I'm a very curious person. Unmounting a TV or TV remote controls or whatever I could find and watches later on. That's something that is the ultimate of my curiosity. Kind of engineering mindset a little bit, but I love drawing and I love making also. And my first entry into the watch world was very simple. At the time, I finished my studies and I had a degree of I done something that was it was called in Switzerland Mediamatica, which is a mix between a graphic designer, an accountant, and a web designer. So a lot of things that job was to help little companies to have a profile that can do a little bit of everything. So very suited for small teams. Very much a self-starting type of mindset also. But I wanted to do design. I wanted to make objects. So I remember to send at the age of 16, like 50 letters to all the watch brands to say, hey, I would be curious to come and learn about what you do and how you do it. I mostly had refusals, but a design studio based in Loloc at the time that was owned by Antoine Choumi and is still owned. The company was called Neodesis and basically he opened his doors and he started to teach me all he knew. I mean, I became a designer by working on the field, so not via the school, where I ended up teaching then on occasions, but yeah, I learned by doing somehow. Fantastic years. Worked there 10 years. Worked for amazing brands. Of the one that are of public name that the studio was working at the time was brands like Grubble Forsey, some of the Opus series, and some more fashionable brands. So that was very interesting. Vast spectrum. And then somehow I told you I'm curious about expensive, not expensive, about complicated watches that end up being expensive because they're complicated, but is not the expensiveness that interests me, is the technical challenge. We ended up getting very close to Jean-François Mojon, which you probably know, founder of Chronode, inventor of some of very well-known timepieces out there, such as some of the MBNF and HYT systems and Opus series. So he's a crazy watch inventor, and we ended up founding a little startup where the sole goal of it was to promote new ideas for movements. And that's I don't think there is any company that does this nowadays. But basically, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, we want to make new type of movements. Selling movements sometimes is not easy at start, but we identify brands that we liked and started to create ideas and mechanical concepts and even to a point that have 3D printed movements, functional movements on the table, and approach these brands without any contractual risk for any of the parties. So that was pure investment on our side of time and resources, and say, hey, hello, we have some ideas for you. We think they're cool. Would you like to see them? You don't have to pay anything, and if you like it, well, we would be happy to build it for you. And that was great. Some great projects got born out of this. Even some projects for Hublot at the time, and some of Harry Winston. So that was a lot of fun. Then the most important happened. I met my wife. She was living in UK. I always left all my life in Lolocle, and after a lot of travel back and forth, I decided to move to London and open a new chapter of my life with her, which I'm still in today. And obviously, moving to another place. Up to then, I only knew to do one thing: make watches. So I was always taking the EasyJet flights back and forth to Gatwick at the time. And I always saw these adverts of that brand called Christopher Ward, which I never heard of my little world in Lolocle. And they had some interesting complications on the adverts, some world timer, a bit unusual, fully mechanical. I was like, that's interesting. What are these guys doing? And I simply ring them and I say, I'm just curious to know about you. Can I come and have a coffee? And I had a coffee, and at the end of the coffee, without much expectation, I came back with a job. So everything was set to move to England. Been living there 6 years. And after a few years at Christopher Ward, I mean, something that was core to me is that I work with them and I build my own studio at the same time, which is called Fusion, where we work for other watch brands. And that's something that, with my background coming from an agency and touching a lot of different projects, being solely focused on one watch brand is something that I would get bored. And that was a condition they accepted, as long as we play on different price categories. That wouldn't be an issue. And yeah, as much as I worked and build myself and hopefully build some of the product range there. Also build Fusion as a design studio servicing different brands. And then let's bring us to one of the person that I've been working on through Fusion was Chapek, and that's how I met Harry, who was the founder of Chapek, and he had that crazy idea of making a smartwatch. And as you know, I'm a bit of a geek, watch geek and tech geek, in all the sense of the word. I thought, okay, why not? I have no idea about connected watches. There is something interesting. There is definitely ideas that can be developed. And the starting goal was very simple, was, connected watches, their battery sucks. I cannot put another word to this. Having an object you have to charge every day is annoying. We gave up that freedom with phones. I still remember phones lasting a month, when now if they last a day, you're already a very lucky dude. And that was fantastic adventure, and still is, to the point that split my time between these two universe. One which is making mechanical watches for different watch brands, and I have a team of designers that are a fantastic team. And then having Sequin, which is at the moment mainly a team of engineers, from software to hardware to algorithm, even doctors, advisors. So very different world that is now ready to scale up. I mean, company still already does, kind of close to the 5,000 watches a year. So still in the starting blocks, but there is an interesting story to write there. That bring me to today. That's more or less it.
Well, you are an ideal guest. You have not spoken 5 minutes. It's almost 10 minutes. And thank you for that. There is so much to unpack there. So maybe let's start at the top. Would you classify yourself first and foremost as a designer?
It is what I'm at heart. Does mean designer or lateral thinker will be the two descriptions, and the fact that uh, I'm the person to put in a meeting with a CEO, a decision maker, ideally a technical guy or watchmaker, and myself, and one holding some kind of vision, the other one holding some technicalities, and me kind of throwing the ball back. And I think I'm pretty decent at that, to take the ball, modify it, and adjust it, and pen and paper is still my main tool. I would rather work only with a flip chart and pen and paper than with emails and Zoom. So people around the table, some ideas, sketches, 3 people, 4 maximum. That's how you make great project, in my opinion.
So maybe, I guess you spend a lot of time on Sequin. Maybe let's start talking a bit more about Sequin, please. So it's actually amazing because you guys have a connected watch that runs on kinetic energy. It has a rotor. We wouldn't call it a mechanical movement, but it reminds me of the old Seiko calibers that wind a spool, basically. Can you elaborate a bit more what Sequent is and what makes you guys different from all the rest?
What makes us different technically is exactly what you described. So instead of having a connected watch with a screen and a battery you need to recharge with a power plug, we have an analog watch without any screen. Everything is indicated traditionally with hands. And then we have a rechargeable kinetic system. So uses kind of the visual of an automatic watch, but technically speaking, it's a generator and works like a generator. And it's something that we haven't invented kinetic watches. Seiko and Swatch Group with Kinetron have done the auto quartz. Still to today, both of them said that they were the first. I still haven't found the real truth, but I wouldn't be surprised that they just come up with the same idea executed a little bit differently technically at a similar time. And that's something not completely unusual to see brands coming with an execution of something that has a close idea root. And I take you an example that was very funny. I don't know if you remember the Opus series that Max have started at Harry Winston at the time. I've been lucky to be part of the Opus 10 with Mojon, Antoine, and Harry Winston. And that was a planetarium system with a GMT on the outside, and you had 4 discs, always rotating through 24 hours and always remaining orientated. That means the hour dial always have the 12 at top. And the same year, the same Baselworld, the same date, Renaissance was launching their watch, the really cool watch. I'm a big fan of Benoit work, and the principle is pretty much the same. It's a planetarium mechanism, and yeah, it just happened that few people in different parts of the world came up with a similar principle but executed differently. So yeah, coming back to Sequent and the kinetic, I think that's what happened between Kinetron and Seiko at the time. What we have done is that what has been developed at the time couldn't be applied to a smartwatch or connected watch, because connected watches work on Bluetooth and they need a lot of voltage, so they need a lot of power. And what we done is we took that principle, if I say so, and we simplify it to make it up to 20 times more performant than before. And the solution was super simple. It took us a long time to get there, but the solution for us was to remove the gears of the Seiko Kinetic or of the Auto Quartz, which allow us to remove friction and give us space to add a big rotor and a big stator and a big magnet, so oversizing everything up to generate more power. So that was one key of our technical solution. And the second key was to consume very, very little power. Ultra low power is not even enough of a word to describe what we do. For those that doesn't know what Sequent look like, is a watch that have hour and minutes, and at the bottom you have an activity tracker or a heart rate monitor, depending the mode you are on. And the watch to have just the hour, minutes, and the activity tracker for a full 24 hours would consume per day 1/8 of a second of a 10-watt LED light bulb. So let me repeat that. 1/8 of a second of a 10-watt LED light bulb. So even if you switch that light on and off within a second, that would be already 10 times more energy than our watches use. So that's how little we make it work. And we achieved to do this by clever engineering on electronics, algorithm that we have developed ourselves. Yeah, that was a whole journey of building a watch, but then it's more than a watch. It's got an app and bringing people of a software team, speaking to people with a hardware team. All of this is absolutely fascinating. I mean, if you like development and engineering, it's just a different type of angle to mechanical watches, but the joy is the same to develop. And now Sequent is at the stage where we have done great engineering. We started to have a bit of fun on some of the models we launched. Actually, I think we connected through one of the models that we launched via the god of watch publication, Serge Maillard and Europastar, because I remember you've seen the smartass watch of Romaric. That was us giving us the rights of doing something nobody else would do on a connected watch, to bring in less sterile. And I think that's the edge that we're building now slowly into Sequent. Is not just a watch to count your steps. It's another way to motivate people to do activity, but with fun. I'm not a fan of kind of objects giving you orders and say you have to do this and this, but if we can play with some fun facts and fun products that people are enjoying to wear and listen to, I think there is great things that can be done. And again, we are on the start of that journey. I'm not uh, I'm a maker. I'm probably a terrible communicator and marketer, but we're getting help on this to bring I would call it the Red Bull factor into the brand.
Thank you so much. And again, you're a good communicator because you took it down another 10 minutes. So thank you for that. For our listeners that want to Google or find the watches while they're listening, Sequent is spelled Sequuent, and the website is sequentworld.com, which spells SEQUENTWORLD.com. I actually own one, tested it, worn it. You guys really make a real watch. I think that today you guys are Swiss made, right?
We are not yet Swiss made.
Not
We
yet.
Not yet, but this is definitely a goal. So we're embarking a whole discussion with the FHS regarding the regulation on the Swiss made on what we do, because it's a new category. Some of the areas are not defined, and things are very well defined for quartz and for mechanical, but they are a little bit blurry regarding chips and some of the components on the electronics, because Switzerland has some electronic know-how. There is some capacity, but it doesn't have the power to develop some of the chips that you can find in Taiwan or Japan or South Korea. So even if there is sometimes alternatives, there is alternatives that are not necessarily matching our brief of consumption, because that's the key for our product to work. Is we need ultra low consumption chips, basically, and power management elements. So yeah, it's on the roadmap. Find the partners. We are already there to kickstart it. But obviously, that kind of things need funds. So we have been fundraising and making sure that we have enough firepower to get to the Swiss made, because we think that's the right thing to do. I'm not sure if it's gonna necessarily be the right thing in terms of marketing, but somehow we feel that somebody has to do it and make it Swiss made. And with all what we build, I think we're in a decent position to do this. So yeah, watch your space.
For those that are investors or want to be investors,
Reach out to me. That's the quickest way.
on LinkedIn, or should they message the Real Time Show Robo and I, and we'll connect you, or how do you want to go about?
That's so either by you or either directly to Adrian at sequent.ch. And Adrian is spelled Adrian, and at sequent as you spelled it before. Always keen to get some more minds around the table. I'm very lucky. We have some great shareholders already around that help us. Friends and families. And I do believe in enriching conversation and connections on projects. And as much as I am quite narrow focus on being small teams to develop products, then on how to enhance and how to build up on companies, I do believe that having multiple feedbacks is definitely beneficial. And sometimes is what is said that is important, or what is not said that is important. Long silence can tell a lot of things.
You've been doing Sequin now for about 6.5 years, if I'm not mistaken. And you're in the UK now for 8 years doing Fusion with a Z, Fuzion. And also, I think you bear the title Head of Product Design at Christopher Ward, right?
So yeah, a few years back, I left. Technically speaking, I was an employee of Christopher Ward, and then I left to be just a consultant, a design consultant. But my title remained there, and in whatever watch venture I'm involved in, I I always work like I'm an internal person as much as possible. I'm kind of non-fan of consultants come and go and they have their own agendas. But if you're willing to commit and understand how the inside works, and obviously that requires also a partner to be quite sharing on how the inside works. I think that's where you can do the best consultancy job, because you understand the core opportunities or problems or improvement possibles, and yeah. So I still bear that title more as a simplification for teams to understand that I'm part of the team. But even with the other brands I work with, I always work like they're my own brands, or that I'm employed by them. I'm a product passionate and people passionate, so if you want to do great products, you need great people interacting well together, and removing the barriers of is external, is internal. You cannot say this, you can say that. Does become too political, and something I really am not a fan of politics. This is not my game.
And definitely not my game either. That's why I like to hang out with you and I get along with you. I want to talk about a bit about Fusion and what brands you've designed for. And maybe let's start off. What design are you most proud of today? Let's start with that.
You put me on the spot. I mean, it's like choosing your favorite. I mean, okay. The comparison with child is, I love my child more than whatever watch I've done. Let's be clear about that. But there is not one that I love the most. Uh, I like them all for just different reasons because they do different things. So at the time, when I was working for some of the high end complication at Neodesis, I love them very much. And then I've been involved in doing more entry price watches, and I love them as much. I think what I love the most is ultimately is the people having joy to get the watch for themselves. That's what matters the most. Is because at the end of the day, all of this world that we're living into, if I could do products to please the brands. I think the challenge sometimes is to make products that the customers of the brands will enjoy. That's the key, because they are the one making all of this reality. If there is not somebody at the end of the chain opening the wallet, taking the credit card out, none of us exist. And I think sometimes people tend to forget this, but they are making our industry possible. So I try never to forget that. Uh, I work for brands, but I work for customers.
Okay, so you said I put you on the spot, and that's my task. I'm a wannabe journalist, and the real time show is about real talks, about real watches. So I'm going to push your envelope. So, what design was an epiphany for you, or what design that you did made your career, or which one are you most proud of? I don't think it's one of your children. I don't think you can use that metaphor. Maybe if you're a brand owner and people ask you, oh, within a brand, which one is your favorite, which one sells the best? But since you kind of have a helicopter view, and for designers, I think it's different. You guys are under non-stop pressure to come up with new stuff. I, on the one hand, envy and look up to designers like you that are truly creative and that constantly come up with new stuff, because the longer we roam this planet, the more difficult it is to create new stuff because so much has been done. And I'll not say that even creativity doesn't exist in the context of artificial intelligence coming up. And they are able to create stuff, right? Like art, compose music, write poems, and even create designs. So you can also mention a few if you want, Adrian. Just walk me through your evolution of key points of designs, or maybe start mentioning what brands you can say you work for. I know that most of you designers are under confidentiality contracts that you can't speak freely, but please walk us through a few timelines of yours.
Yes, you're right. I mean, as I work mainly on the shadow, if you want to say, some of them I cannot mention, and which is a shame for the podcast and the people listening to it. So that's yes, but the answer quite complicated. In the brands that I'm the most associated with, if you look for me, I guess Christopher Wood, Chapek, and Sequent is where you would see most of my name associated. It doesn't always represent where I've been the most involved necessarily, because some of other brands I've been doing a lot of work for many years, but as you said, under confidentiality, have to be in the background, which is a position that doesn't disturb me. I don't need the light if you see or the spot on me, because the whole purpose is again the end customer and make them happy. But yeah, and choosing a favorite watch, I think I have more favorite watches of watches of other people than the one I've been involved to. Terrible thing to say. Yes, so back when I was in Switzerland, Chapek started to work with Antoine at the time, and I've been involved into that project since day one. So that was back 8 years ago, or probably even more now. And yeah, probably close to 10 years when the inception of it was happening. And I still remember to go first time on a meeting to meet the Chapek team. And I have something. I'm 35, but I look like I'm 16. There's a bit the reality. I still get asked my idea when I go to a shop. So imagine 10 years back, I was really looking like a teenager. So I go to my first. It was a big meeting, big design presentation. And after the meeting, my boss received a call from Xavier and is like, "Look, the meeting was very good, the presentation was very good, but we're very worried that you send the kids to the meeting." Yeah, that was an interesting journey. One way or another, I've been involved in most of the models since day one. Obviously, you know, like in other design areas, you're not the only one to work on a specific product. There is generally a team, and sometimes the design is born sometimes also of communication. So Xavier is as much as designer as I am. Probably the difference is that I hold a pen. Slightly better to express the ideas. But I think some of the best ideas that came on with him was probably at 2 o'clock in the morning when we call each other to start to bounce some ideas. And the one that I've been most notably known for is the Antarctic. And I think that's also a one that definitely changed the size and the scope of the brand and started to gain visibility. Launched it in full pandemic. 2020 sounds like it's 10 years ago, the start of the pandemic, not so long ago, but at that time everybody in our industry, so that was the going to be the end of the world. No shop opens, does mean no customers taking the credit card out, does mean none of us exist. But somehow they pull it off.
So walk me through that process. So the world is on lockdown. Was the design brief make an integrated bracelet watch, or did this idea float in your head or your team's head or all of you at Chapek or whomever worked on the project? Walk me through it.
The brief was the following, coming from the fans and aficionados and shareholders of the brand. They had the Kiddeberg, very nice classical watch, the Place Vendôme, very nice classical watch, but at 100,000 plus. And they all had the issues like, oh, I cannot wear these watches to go to the beach or do a family activity. They're not suited for the purpose of being active. It's kind of the brief. How you make uh, daily beat is not the right definition, but how you make a one that is a bit more versatile in different situations, and that doesn't, that would go well with shorts as much well as when you are more casual or more formal. There is not many watches that fit this whole kind of purpose area. Probably some of the submariners or explorers that are worn in any occasion, I would say. And then you have integrated watches, so still bracelet, which is interesting, with what Genta have done with the integrated watches, and these are watches that are worn in many situations. I think the fact to remove already the traditional strap, alligator or more simple leather, removes the watches from that kind of classical category. Or if you use NATO's, it go more explorer. So the straps are a big part of the watches, sometimes seen as an afterthought when you develop a watch, but they're fully part of a watch. And one of the starting point was, okay, you need to have a bracelet, and then different routes have been evolved from this. And for a long time, it was two different routes actually, kind of on the table possible. One, which is a watch with lugs, but with a bracelet. Another one, which was a watch without lugs, so more integrated, or let's say it without that step between the lugs and the bracelet, so everything feel like one piece. And I think if I remember in one of your podcasts, Xavier presented that to his board, and they all said, "Oh, I have to do the one with the lugs," but somehow they all wanted that it does the other one, but the other one was a bit more of a risk, and the risk would have been to be not enough different or be too much associated with some of the Genta iconic watches. Because since the Royal Oak and the Nautilus, there is a lot of integrated watches in the market. It's a new type of watch that I've been really building up. Probably because of the rarity of the big ones. So that presented an opportunity for other people to come around, and also because of what customers we're looking for.
So thank you for raising the topic of the epic Gerald Genta. An intermezzo question for you. Do you look up to late Mr. Gerald Genta? And do you take inspiration from that?
Yeah, of course. Couldn't I?
Sure, well, you could. You could not. There are people who aren't. But okay, so you mentioned him. Now, when you had that brief, did you see that as a tremendous pressure on your shoulders? So the metaphorical Atlas, so the god that carries the world on his shoulders. Did you see it as a big mountain you had to climb? Or did you bite into this challenge and were you excited to take it on?
Both feelings.
Because compliments to you guys. I mean, I think that two brands and two models deserve a prize, and maybe three, which is for me the Octo Finissimo, the Octo within Bulgari Fabrici Bonamassa, did a successful modern take of integrated bracelet models. It is Moser, H. Moser and C with the Streamliner, created a total new integrated bracelet watch, and so did you guys. I mean, you could say it is an reincarnation of Gerald Genta, which it isn't, but you just said that with the Royal Oak and the Nautilus, which obviously, and Adrian, doesn't mean that they were launched recently because they're designs from the early 70s, but they have been very popular the last decade and a half. So that's, I guess, what you meant to say just earlier on.
Absolutely.
So walk me through, I call it the U link, and my dear Rob, my fellow co-host of the Real Time Show, calls it the C link. What do you call it?
It's a C link for Chapek. Otherwise, it would be a U check.
So, darn, Rob, you were right, and I was wrong, but I still see an U in it because you look at it horizontally, vertically, not horizontally. Anyways, Adrian, I don't want to get into a fight with you on the show right now. How long did it take you guys to actually come up with this design? Was this a lightning bolt hitting you, or did you have a long writer's block?
I think the development took almost 18 months, and 18 months is not like every day on it 100%, but it's always there floating. And at the same time as designing the case and the watch and the dial, the design of the movement was started at the same time. So I remember they were looking for a watch constructor to make the movement technically happen, and the world is small in the watchmaking. That's where I knew Daniel Martinez from previous work experiences. Fantastic movement designer, which was also starting on the project on the movement. So everything had to come somehow together. So while being independent elements, so there is a big study on movement design and how the bridges should take form, and hundreds of trials and different iterations, while at the same time work on the bracelet, on the case, on the dial, and ultimately all of this needs to be coherent and speak the same language. So yeah, 18 months, I think that's what it took us to do everything. Probably even 24 months to prototype.
So let's go to Christopher Ward. Same question. What projects did you work on at Christopher Ward?
So since I joined them in 2014, I believe, yes, I joined them to do everything from A to Z. So for a long time, I was a lone designer. I mean, they used to have a designer, Fraser at the time, amazing guy. What he done for the first 10 years of the brand is incredible, because he's a self-taught watch designer without any guidance, nothing. I mean, that guy was a playground designer before, so it tells you the world he come in, from very big and for kids to very small for still kids but adults. And yeah, they wanted to kind of step up the design kudos at Christopher Ward. And as I said, they had amazing things on the table. Johannes Jenke, which was the movement designer there, he made them an in-house movement. At the time, no micro brand, because they were in the micro brand category, was doing in-house movements. That would have been crazy. But they've done that.
I want to jump in quickly, very quickly, for their listeners that don't know this English brand. It's spelled CHRISTOPEHER, and then Ward, WARD, and the URL is the first and last name.com. Is this a living person, or is this a mashup of something, Adrian? And I believe they're D2C, right? Direct to consumer. They don't have retail or their own boutiques.
Absolutely. So the company have been founded by three guys: Peter Ellis, Mike France, and Christopher Ward himself. All three coming from the retail world, having worked on toy retails. So two of them, they used to own that company called the Erlin Learning Center. They were the largest. They were kind of the Toys R Us of England somehow. And Chris coming from more apparel and working for Reebok and all of this. And kind of they had the success story, and they done the 3 weeks holidays. I guess once you done some exit and you have success, you do your world tour, and then you get probably a little bit bored, which is what I believe happened to them. And they kind of reconnected and said, okay, what can we do next? Because they were hungry of adventures and doing something. They decided to go on watches probably for two reasons. The first one is because it's small, so it's quite convenient. You don't need big warehouses and all of this. So you take other industries, this can become a bit cumbersome. And they had some insight from the industry that the multiple practice in the industry 8 times to 10 times, and sometimes I even seen in my career up to 20 times factor. So between what it costs and what an end consumer pays, that's the multiple factor. And they base the business model on a very simple principle, which is, well, if they sell direct to consumer, does mean they can still have a business that does a certain margin, and they communicate very openly. They do a factor of 3, but simply because there is no retail in between. The experience is different. I cannot compare it to traditional retail as you are involved in, Alon. Not sure if you communicate that widely in the show that you are a watch retailer also.
Yeah, definitely. Everything is transparent on the real-time show. There's a real talks. We talk about everything.
Perfect.
So there's nothing hidden, and what you see is what you get.
Okay.
So So, Adrian, talking about these low price points, my favorite watch is the C1 Bel Canto.
Yes.
A, did you work on that, yes or no? And B, walk us through that watch a little bit. Why is it so spectacular and why am I in love with it?
So yes, I worked in it, and the Bel Canto started. Actually, Christopher Ward has, as you said, is a Swiss English company. They have offices in Switzerland and offices in UK. UK does design, distribution, marketing, and Switzerland does engineering, making, production, assembly, quality control, and they also do watches and movements for Meister Singer. And the project was born over Meister Singer module. So if I rewind back, Christopher would have been doing modules, so kind of an additional movement on top of an existing Silita or in-house movement that has a special complication. That's what we call a module. And they had the jumping hour that was used for Christopher Ward and for some other brands. And at a certain point, I don't know exactly who, somebody said, oh, why don't we do a derivation of the jumping hour to a gong? Because every hour, the hours jump, so we can use the same energy to have a hammer hitting a gong to make a sound. And they done a first kind of version for Meister Singer, was invisible and under the dial. Aesthetically, a module, very efficient, but not very pretty. And somehow sitting with my colleagues, Will Brackfield, who is now leading most of the designs at Christopher Ward, and Jörg Bader, who is the head of product at Ward. We thought that was something interesting, that kind of a challenge. How can we make this exciting and pretty and fun, and show that there is some watchmaking edge at a different price point? And that was a whole journey. Also lasted another 18 months, 24 months of throwing the ball left and right to make sure that we can get to something. And the key was to make the complication understandable, and something that you don't see. And that's going to answer your question, why you think is interesting, is I think you can look at it and understand how it works. And the way we done it is we only focus on a few elements, and when you see it moving, you see these elements, the right elements, just interacting with each other. So you don't look at it like a complicated choreograph and say, oh, this is complicated, it's complicated to understand. We work really hard to make it simple to understand, and then to make it perfectly symmetrical, and work on the volume. So all of these keys put together, I think, made it the success for the brand. It has been transformational for the brand, I must say. That A single watch completely changed their size and the perception of the public.
Yeah, well done, because it really elevated the game. And now you guys shook up the industry a little bit, because I kind of need to wrap up, but I have one hot potato I need to deal with. As you might know, we have the Real Time Show Network. It's a group of watch collectors, listeners, industry insiders, and even other designers as well. And one of them sent a question to our mailbag for the weekly Tuesday episodes, which are the Q&A episodes that Rob and I do. And on the day that Christopher Ward launched the 12, so that's their newest model, he immediately said, yeah, doesn't it look like a Chapek? And I don't know if he knows that you are involved with both brands and maybe there's similarities there. I personally think it has a vibe of a bit of a Tissot PRX, the lunette, the bezel, a bit of Zenith Defy. So there's a big mashup. So my first question to you is, were you active on the 12 project, yes or no?
Yes. I've been active on the 12 project.
Okay. Would you say that there is a bit of a vibe of these brands in there?
Absolutely. I mean, I can't remember which comment I read online, but yeah, PRX, the Defi, the Laureato, the AP, the Chapek. I mean, you know, there is a lot of codes of what makes an integrated watch as we know it today, in a way or another. I think it's quite funny that, if you come from a specific watch fan, if you're a fan of Tissot, people see it as a Tissot. If you're a fan of a DeFi, you see it as a DeFi, and the fact that they all say this is kind of questioning. Well, then, if you think the 12 is like the DeFi and somebody else think is like the PRX, so are you saying that the PRX and the DeFi are the same? Not necessarily. So that that was very interesting to see the reaction online, I must say.
Okay, so what struck me as odd, initially it was called the 12, so I assumed there was a big number 12 on the dial. There are no numerals on the dial, only indices. What does the name stand for?
Because it's a dodecagon bezel and backplate, so the same as Zenith has also the 12 plan, but 12-sided bezels go back to a long time. I think Baume and Mercier back in the 70s, they
With the
already,
Classima?
yeah, with the Classima,
Yeah,
they had the
yeah,
dodecagon. So it's
yeah.
it's a number that makes sense for a
Okay,
watch.
okay. And tell me something. Could we state that if your budget was bigger and the ticket price could have been higher, could it have been a more original design? Or am I insulting you by saying that?
Yeah, no, you're insulting me. I'm never gonna speak to you ever again. No, I'm kidding, but
No,
uh,
but do you catch my drift? Because I imagine the most difficult line a designer has to walk when it's not creating a solely 100% proprietary project for her or himself is how do you balance the expectations of your customer, so the company you work for, and your own design DNA, your design code, your design wishes, your design dreams, your originality, your authenticity, because you basically put a bit of your DNA in everything you design, right? But you always try to make something new. Um, Honestly, I kind of understand all the feedback in the industry. I don't see much of originality in the watch, but since I'm born and raised in this industry and I am a commercial guy and I am a marketeer, I understand what Christopher Ward wanted, did, and what the design brief might have been. I haven't seen the design brief. And obviously I'm walking a delicate line here because I don't want to offend you. I don't want to offend Christopher Ward. I think it's amazing what they've done and they're doing. But I kind of understand rather surprised response from consumers. And in the trade, we often say a beautiful watch is a sold watch. Okay, so that's not a objective rule of thumb of beauty and if something is good or bad or beautiful or ugly, right? So that's from a commercial point of view. So I reckon this watch sells well.
of what I've heard, it sells very, very well.
But it's mostly because it's 1,095 euros retail for a watch that's with an automatic movement. I haven't held it in my hands, and I've decided a few years ago that I'm never going to be explicit in my ruling of what I find of a watch until I've held it in my hands. Because even I literally grew up in this industry, I'm thrown off by images, 3D images, renders, even augmented reality. From now on, I don't make decisions until I've held a watch. So, full disclosure, I haven't held the 12. But would you agree with those that say, hey, this is very Antarctic-ish or not? And what's your answer to that, dear Adrian?
Not at all. Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. I mean, you hold them in hands. The Antarctic is it's a refined watch, and I say this because the lines are curvy, and it's got a whole work on the top of the surface and the bracelets to be soft and dome and delicate, and you see that even on the movement how it's done. We took inspiration of old Chapek movement and do the paint to do separate bridges and bring really fine lines to everything that is done there. where the Christopher Ward watch is a little bit more aggressive in the sense that the lines are straight and is playing, in my opinion, is playing closer to a rare oak in the fact that everything is so straight, but with the simplicity of a movement, maybe of a Perex or of a Bulgari. So you should own them in your hands to see the difference. They're not playing in the same category at all. One is pure high-end fine watchmaking. The other one is good quality watchmaking, accessible for everybody. And you see that when you hold it in your hands. Two are great quality products, but they don't go in, doing the case of the Chapek is a way more complicated case to do than the Christopher Ward.
Sorry to interrupt you, could you say it's a tribute or a wink at, or you don't
No,
even want to go, you don't want to go there?
no, it's never, the funny thing is that Christopher Ward has been doing an integrated was on the table for a long time with bits of sketches here and there, but they do so many watches and so many releases that never been the right time. And yeah, things just happened that, the real reason why they decided to go there is because they've seen a shift in how people are buying classical watches. So they used to have a big classical range, and classical watches have been declining for them, technically speaking. And there has been a rise of bracelet watches, which is quite interesting because you see this going on the market. If I was a pure classical watch brand, I would feel a little bit insecure nowadays because that's not how people are wearing the watches. Formality kind of fade away, and that I believe why bracelet watches are raising. And the ultimate bracelet watch, it is an integrated watch, in my own opinion, because the lines are flowing beautifully between the case and the bracelet.
Interesting. And while listening to you, I'm looking at the website, on the Christopher Ward website, and on the 12th page, and then literally there is a whole article dedicated to Gerald Genta, which they called the Picasso of watchmaking. So would you say it's a tribute to Genta then?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I would say that any integrated watch in the market is a way or another a tribute to Genta watch. He invented the genre. I mean, to a little caveat, if you go back in time, there is a Rolex called the Rolex Texan, released in 1971 or two.
Mm-hmm.
That is unnamed out there, and there is, I think, the Rolex UFO that was even a little bit before, not kind of integrated somehow. So, but Genta is the one that made it big and makes the icons out of it. And I think everybody that has an integrated watch goes back to the root of this. They are all a version of or an interpretation of. But nothing wrong with that. It's like, some great artists invented surrealism, and then you have a lot of great artists coming on the back of it that done their own version of. Not saying that these pieces are less interesting; they're just different.
Very interesting. And I can go on for hours because you actually opened Pandora's box right now. But I want to put her back in. No. Thank you for that. I want to put her back in the box. I'm now 100% convinced you need to come back on the show. I really hope you would like to. I want to wrap it up now. I want to thank you, Adrian, so much for sharing so openly and taking the heat from me and our dear listeners. I want to thank all our listeners as well for today's episode, all the other episodes, that you've been rating the podcast, subscribing, and sending in those questions. Please keep them coming. You can find Rob on Instagram at ROBNUDDS, or email him at rob@therealtime.show. You can find me on Instagram at ALONBENJOSEPH, or email me alon@therealtime.show.